What was the incident at your workplace? Write in the comments what you think about it. What was your incident? Enjoy the show. Story 1. Working in a butcher's years ago, a new young guy started with the team and was spotted twice hugging a lamb. Keep in mind that this wasn't the soft, cuddly, and alive type. This was the gutted, skinned, and decapitated type that was hanging from a steel hook in a walk-in fridge. Turns out his girlfriend had just dumped him, and he needed a bit of physical touch. Story 2. There was a team dinner. There's Girl A and Girl B. Girl A started talking about the wonderful love story between Girl B and Guy A. Problem. Girl B was also dating Guy B at the same time. Double problem, Guy B was at the dinner. So Girl A had no idea she essentially outed Girl B two-timing Guy A and Guy B. Guy B was like, I see. The few people who knew she was two-timing was desperately trying to get Girl A to shut up or move on to another topic. Triple problem. Someone at the table know for a fact that there's a Guy C and only learned of the existence of Guy A and Guy B at the dinner. Apparently, the aftermath wasn't pretty. Girl B then transferred to a different office. Story 3. One colleague sent a mail to an enormous distribution list during then night, with a big attachment made of stolen emails, pictures, of the flirting of some other employees. He was jealous and felt like he had been led on by the girl, so it was his revenge. It was pretty explicit while sometimes poetic and anyway obviously written in the middle of a night frenzy. Early morning, but after most people have seen the email, we get an email from upper management, kindly asking to delete the email as it was containing private information possibly obtained illegally, etc. I think it remains an occasional reading for the gossip and giggle years after. Story 4. Worked in a big supermarket on the butcher counter and went to grab meat from the fridge. Right on top of some packaged sirloin steaks was a human finger. Turned out one of the guys the night before got it jammed between two roll cages and it popped off. He went to hospital, but they forgot the finger. Story 5. Office manager hired a cleaning crew to take care of our small office for $2,000 a month. Most of us are in and out of the office, not there all day, so we'd come back and she'd say the cleaning people had been. The price seemed steep, but the OM detailed that they were a good company and everything would be taken care of. But they were doing a horrible job. Pretty much just a light run of the vacuum and emptying out the trash cans, maybe refilling paper towels and TP. The owner wanted to speak with the cleaning service and ask what the hell the $2,000 covered, and the office manager said she'd handle it, but it never really got better. Mainly just the owner's office started getting a full clean. Owner looked into it, and turned out the office manager had created an LLC or pretended to make, and had been paying herself $2,000 a month for about 2-3 hours of work. Story 6. Just got a new job. Within past 3 months. Apparently the old boss was a lead suspect in a double homicide of local women of the night, escorts. I guess he realized he was screwed, so he fled the country using the company's credit card. He eventually came back to the company months later and erased himself from the computer system at my work for some reason. No one saw him enter or leave, only on camera. To my knowledge, he's still missing, but not exactly sure. Story 7. Several years ago, found out a staff member's son was assaulting young women who were working at a healthcare facility. Well, his staff member was also very good and finding out about others' dirty laundry, and basically blackmailed them or threatened them. Her husband was a cop at the time. If any news came about the son, well, the son got caught at a party and on camera of one of these assaults, and then committed suicide a few days later. Well, word got out about the cover-ups and the blackmail, so these people either resigned, transferred, or got fired. Meanwhile, the staff member who was hiding all of this got the chance to retire. Word was they had some really dark information on one of the higher-ups. The other sibling learned about all this and pretty much got up and left and disappeared from the family. The staff member apparently still does something similar to threats and so forth to neighbors, has the police called on them several times, but sadly the didn't do anything because of the husband. To cut to the chase, the husband retired because the police chief retired, and so did a lot of the staff that were around the same years of service. The staff member moved out of town, and no one heard from them again. Apparently they knew their days of being the queen bee were over, and they got out of Dodge. Story 8. I was working at a restaurant and it was a very quiet lunch, so I was cleaning stuff. I emptied the drawer under the bar and noticed this weird thing. It is like a toy that you wear with your keys. Nothing on it but this one button, so I press it. Nothing happens. I expect lights to go on or something and maybe it is directional, so I point at a few lights and push the button several times. Again, nothing happens. Then the phone rang, so I pick it up. Huh? It's the police asking if it is safe to talk? I have no clue what is going on, so I answer, "Yeah? Of course, what is the matter?" Turns out I pushed the emergency button in case of a robbery, but nobody told me there was such a thing, so if there would have been a real robbery, I wouldn't have known about it. Plus, it was in the back of a drawer, still in the little box it comes in. My employer was a little angry because that cost him a lot of money, but he should have told me. Story 9. Not sure if this counts as an incident, but I work at a pharmacy, and one time we got a doctor's prescription for new COVID medicine. I had to do the final check, and I noticed the dosage was wrong, so I asked my coworker if she called the doctor about this. She didn't, so I had to put on a new label. Doing that, I found out that the medicine was hella expensive. I think it was about euro 1,500 for a week's worth of treatment. Asked my coworker if she called the patient about this. There is healthcare here, but you have to pay the first 380 euros out of your own pocket first every year. She didn't, and since it was like January or something, I knew the patient probably had to pay that money first. My coworker wanted me to shut up about it, but I kind of know this patient, so I cannot bear to not inform them. It was for an elderly man. I call them. Obviously, they don't want the medicine, so I tell them I will have it removed from their file, and they don't have to worry. They are so thankful they can't pay that much money for it. So I remove the prescription from their file, and I want to return the medication to our manufacturer. They don't take it back. I tell the pharmacist about this because I don't want to end up in trouble for keeping things a secret. Het gets hella mad at everyone and yells that the patient is going to pay for it anyway, because he's not covering for our mistake. I openly filed a report to our head office what happened, because I want to be sure that if shit hits the fan, they see I've been honest from the start. In the end, the pharmacist didn't charge the patient, just scolded us for days, and then it was forgotten. Story 10. We had two from one small company. A consultant for our financial software wasn't performing too well in the late 90s. He was given many chances to up his game, but kept getting worse. Then one night he showed up at our sales director's house and just stood outside. Eventually he left, but was fired the next day. A week later, he was driving down Oxford Street in London and mounted the pavement, killing 2 people. He said it was the voices in his head that made him do it. He was not a well man and was committed to a psychiatric ward. The second was the time 12 years ago when our lead developer decided to attempt a coup and take over the company. This ended badly, as everyone except him thought it would. He was marched out of the building. He is still unemployed to this day. He is one of the most intelligent yet delusional people I've ever met. Another from a different company, and I don't know if it is still spoken about, was the time my boss was found guilty of the murder of her infant son, who she sometimes brought to work and left locked in the boot trunk of her car. He starved to death. She had a daughter as well who was looked after well. I can only assume she had some kind of severe depression after the birth, but the judge sentenced her to 25 years and did not accept her plea of diminished responsibility. Story 11. It was in the redacted internal service department of a very large institution, which nobody cares about unless something goes wrong, in which case they complain bitterly. Every time you went in there, 3 to 5 angry people were queuing to abuse the person behind the counter. The first event was a slightly muted tone email announcement that the manager of that area had died. The second was one staff member of the department punched the other in the face, smashing his glasses and sending glass shards into his eye. The puncher was fired. Then I got the backstory on the quiet from my boss. The manager had died by suicide. Anyway, be nice to individuals in your underperforming internal service department. They are probably miserable. Story 12. Gypsy wedding party came to our Mac restaurant from a nearby illegal caravan park. Place was packed, shoulder to shoulder, kids jumping off the tables, people trying to claim each other's orders, yelling, screaming, fighting. Toilets painted with a thick coat of Smirnoff Ice, scented puke. Business manager tries to calm them down. The wedding party starts collectively pelting front counter with dips. Police refuse to come out. Story 13. I worked at a department store as a teen, and my cousin worked in security. A woman came in and was very obviously shoplifting. When she tried to leave the store and they asked her to leave the merchandise, she reached her keys under her dress, and when she pulled them out, they were covered in feces. She threw them into the makeup department. She then continued to reach down and scoop feces to throw around at displays and customers. No underwear, I guess. She was dispensing poop like it was her job. They got her off the floor and calmed down, and city police were called. While they were waiting for her to be picked up, she asked to use the bathroom. A female manager had to take her, and once they got in the bathroom, it started again. The whole women's public bathroom was liberally covered in poop, and because of how late on the weekend it was, Custodial wasn't there to deal with it. I give her credit. That store manager said that she was already mostly covered in it already, so she may as well be part of cleaning it up and got it sorted with very minimum fuss. I don't know how one person could poop so much in that short of a time. Story 14. Another one here, too. When I started, my production leads consisted of a guy and a woman. They were always together and very flirty. I assumed they were a couple, as did everyone else who was new. Come to find out that she was actually married to the production manager. This went on for years with tons of rumors. Fast forward to a few months ago. I've been there 3 years. She fills out maternity paperwork. When the plant manager asks her husband why he has her maternity paperwork but he didn't fill out paternity paperwork, he has to tell the plant manager that it's not his baby. They had in fact been having an affair for years and he got her pregnant. He got his boss's wife pregnant. They all still work together but now in different shifts in different departments to not cause any conflict of interest. Story 15. I was off this night, but someone left a bomb threat in the woman's restroom. We work in manufacturing where earplugs are required in a very large building. I was told by co-workers they were minding their business working when they looked up to see SWAT and police dogs everywhere. They evacuated the building in the dead of winter, and people had to wait outside. When we returned, they had cut holes in walls and ripped apart a good chunk of our building. I guess something we use in our production process was confusing the dogs, and they had multiple hits. The next few weeks going to work was like going through TSA at the airport. They ended up comparing the handwriting to paperwork we fill out daily. Basically, the lady was fed up that nobody listened to complaints or took things seriously and thought this was the way to get their attention. Story 16. Boss came in to do his usual rounds first thing in the morning, and he looked like he'd maybe hurt his back or his shoulder, but was working through the pain. He clutched his upper shoulder chest as he was walking up to one of the break room tables and kind of propped himself up on the table every now and then for support. He was not that kind of person. A hard-ass and hard-working shop foreman that never missed a day in his life. One of those don't-show-weakness kind of guys. When he was done with the morning meeting, he went to take the staircase up to his office, but could barely make a step without someone helping him. One of the guys said out loud, "Guys, I think he's having a fucking heart attack in front of us. This isn't normal." Turns out that yes, he was having a heart attack while in the break room with us, and repeatedly denied medical attention, even though his right-hand man was begging him to at least let him call an ambulance to check him out. It was only until the last moments that he realized something was seriously wrong with him and agreed to go to the hospital. His friend-colleague drove him to the hospital because an ambulance was too far away and he apparently passed of a heart attack in the car on the way there. The next morning I thought, wow, he's been here since the early morning hours. That's some serious dedication. The frost was still on his car windows as I pulled up, and I was usually one of the first to show after him. We were told that morning that he passed from a massive heart attack. Story 17. Car drove into our building and was parked in one of the elevator shafts. 4-story medical office building on busy street corner in Tampa. Heard a terrible racket and one of our doctors came screaming at us to get out of the building. We were on the first floor. As we are exiting, there is the car. Woman driving, still sitting in driver's seat talking on her cell phone and appeared to be okay. She had apparently done some very interesting driving maneuvers on the street's medians prior to driving through the glass doors into our building. About a year later, someone drove directly into one of our mammography rooms while a patient was getting her mammogram. They had been parked in the parking lot in front of the room and something happened. I felt really bad for the woman just in there for her yearly routine mammogram, but boy, did that give her a story to tell. Story 18. Had a gay executive who was pushing the division to be more and more progressive, not ethically, but from a business perspective. Flexi hours, remote working, relaxed dress code, etc. People really loved him until he sort of became a real dictator about what he wanted. Eventually, he would begin walking down the aisles, and if he saw you using a corded phone instead of Microsoft Teams for a call, he would use scissors to snip your cord mid-call. He thought it was hilarious. He once cut off a man's tie in the same way because ties were too old-fashioned. At one stage, he chastised a Muslim colleague for wearing her khimar headscarf. He was quoted later as stating that, as a gay man, he felt the headscarf to be threatening, but who knows? His behavior was just odd for someone who was campaigning for something good for the company's future. I think it came to a boiling point when he started forcibly removing people from meetings if he got a single whiff of them being against change. It was weird. Most of us were so keen on his policies, but he didn't handle those who were resistant very well. Anyway, He came to work one day and found a freshly laid turd on his desk. That was the incident. Story 19. Worked in Asda for a bit as a home shopping picker. One morning, one of the other pickers was seen sobbing and acting out of sorts. When people asked him what was wrong, he just said he'd done something awful. He won't elaborate and later vanished completely. He was generally a well-liked, decent guy, so many speculated he might have accidentally hit someone with his car or something. Then the rumors started going round that it was to do with an underage girl. Again, this guy was well-liked and nobody had any suspicions about him. He seemed perfectly normal and had no obvious red flags in regards to his behavior. Plus, his wife worked at the pizza counter and they seemed happy enough. So, we thought that maybe he was a bit bored in the marriage and had been talking to someone online. And they'd been a bit younger than they'd said they were. Nope, he was making and distributing images of children, some as young as 2 or 3. And many were deemed Category A, the worst type. He pleaded guilty but didn't get any jail time, which angered a lot of people. However, a few colleagues made sure he didn't stay in a job for long. They'd find out where he worked and call his employers to tell them what he'd done, as it was obvious he wasn't forthcoming with that information. He lost quite a few jobs because of it. Most surprisingly, his wife stayed with him, refused to believe he'd done anything wrong, and carried on working at the store for quite some time after his conviction. She didn't even leave when some unknown staff members posted articles about what he'd done all over the staff canteen corridor. They are still together, from what I can tell. Looking back, the only clue we could find in his behavior was that he was weirdly protective, possessive over his phone. He was only caught because he was sharing the images on Skype, and sharing so many images it was picked up by Skype, who then investigated and informed the police. Story 20. Former boss was accused of sexual harassment by one of our only female employees. Education. HR interviewed each employee individually in depositions for weeks, in which we all gave statements about his character. He was likable, jokey, etc. Ultimately, she was unceremoniously fired and escorted out of the building. Boss spent days talking about how crazy she was. Later, I realized the boss was making a lot of comments about women's bodies, including students. He was more brazen about it after the fact. He also became blatantly sexist, racist, and showed himself to be a textbook narcissist. In short, she was likely fired wrongfully, and we were too blind to see it. When he went off on another female employee, later in front of everyone, and no one stood up for her, she quit. I got the hell out after that and never went back. Story 21. When I was a sailor at my first duty station, a female junior sailor reported a male senior sailor for SA. She ended up getting medically separated for mental health issues stemming from the incident, and he got promoted. Somehow, he and I ended up at the same duty station again now. Fuck that guy and the people who prevented him from getting what's coming to him. I wish I could say this is an isolated incident, but it's all too common in the military. Story 22. I got multiple for different workplaces. Man got arrested for stealing. I worked for a postal company. He worked there for years, had all the benefits and everything. He could have worked there until he retired if he had wanted. His son worked there too and resigned because he thought people would think he was just as his dad. Same job hired someone they fired before for stealing. It wasn't the first person, but it's also possible it was just a rumor. I worked in a shop at the time. A teenage coworker asked another coworker to buy a pregnancy test for him. He didn't want to buy it himself because he was afraid his parents would find out. And then he brought his girlfriend to do the test at work. Though I'm not completely sure if that last one is true, the pregnancy test was negative. My supervisor had resigned and started a new job. Her supervisor accused her of taking products to the back and consuming them without paying for them. I just told him she always paid for products when we were working together. When I worked at Supermarket 1, someone actually took products to the back, eat them, and didn't pay for them. He got fired. I think I had tendinitis at the time, so I was at home when he was fired. He was removed from the group chat, and usually when that happened, someone went on vacation, so they wouldn't be disturbed while on vacation. So I sent him a message telling him I hoped he would have a good holiday. Apparently another coworker did the same thing. Not my finest moment. Supermarket 2. Someone apparently wanted his salary a little early or just wanted more salary because he took some money that wasn't his. The funny thing is, I wasn't at work when any of my coworkers got fired for stealing. I guess the universum is trying to protect me from some drama. Edit. When I worked at the shop, the supervisor of my supervisor told my coworker she couldn't get a contract with more hours. She worked more hours than her contract and wanted those hours in a contract. She had been in an accident and they only paid her the hours she had on her contract. So she wanted more hours on her contract. Anyways, after that, she threatened him and his girlfriend. His girlfriend worked at our shop. So we had to cover her shifts to make sure she was safe. Story 23. Probably me turning up at work at 3 a.m. after a session at the pub, then the strippers. Apparently, I went into the change house and took off my clothes, then into the control room to pick up the day's paperwork, then into my office to start doing it, completely naked. I have no memory of it, but I got anonymous phone calls for weeks afterwards telling me I was a legend. Got suspended for a little while, with pay, LOL, and sent to the company doctor for a chat. She's some kind of genius because after the chat she told me I had a problem with binge drinking. Fucking duh. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it, be sure to write comments and share your stories.